Hi.
Hi, hello, good morning.
Good morning. Yeah, we're there. It's Monday now.
Monday now, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Tuesday when this goes out, but
Okay.
we'll give a few trade secrets away, it's fine. It's not live, that's okay, we couldn't do live.
No, definitely couldn't do live. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah.
We have got two very special foster carers that are joining us today. We have a foster carer from BCP and Bournemouth, Poole and Christchurch, and also a foster carer from Dorset. But we will go over to them and let them introduce themselves. So, Chris, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Chris Smart. I live in Weymouth with my family, my wife, my two dogs, and we've got two children in care at the moment. I've been fostering approximately 16 years now.
Amazing. Thank you. Thank you for coming on.
You're welcome.
And then Damien.
Hi, yes, so my name's Damien Watt. I actually live in Dorset, but foster through BCP. I've got four children of my own. My eldest is 29 and my youngest is 13. I've got three children in care, and I've got a bit of a shout out for Shared Lives too, because I've got a young man that I fostered since the age of 8. He's 30 in January. He now lives with me under Shared Lives. 30, yeah. So we've got a house, there's 11 at home. My eldest son's moved out and just bought a pub, so we've got rid of him. I delivered my daughter to, where's she gone to?
Delivered to university?
She has gone to university in Bristol. That was
amazing.
it yesterday. So that takes our numbers down to 10, but I'm sure BCP will be on the phone because that means it's a spare bedroom. And we've been fostering about 25 years.
Oh, amazing. So combined 41 years
41 years experience with us today, which is absolutely amazing. Chris, could you tell us a little bit about your journey into fostering?
We looked at fostering quite early on, but because I was in the military and we spent a lot of time in Germany, we couldn't actually apply and go through the process because we lived in Germany. Yeah. So if we weren't there at that time, we'd have probably been done, sort of 25 years plus now. But I had to wait till we came out, which was 2008, and then went through the process. So we sort of started around about 2010, 9. So it was always something that we looked at. It was always something that we thought, would be rewarding, because we know people who have done it and the stories, and when we started, it was a long process. I think it's changed now, but when we started, it was like a sort of 2-year process, which it's understandable why they've changed it and reduced it somewhat, because it can get to a point where you just think, wow, it sort of is a bit long, going through the same sort of hoops and hurdles and stuff. But yeah, I mean, there's no looking back now, to be fair. The children we've had, in all capacities, whether it's long-term, short-term, respite, it's been really, really rewarding, and it changes your path of life, your way of sort of thinking. I think it matures you, even though, you may be at mature age, but sometimes it's never moulded life, is it? Your own children, as great as they may be, or as awful as they may be, but, you'll have children in care that come in, which you'll learn from, every day is a school day, so I think you're always learning. And yeah, we sort of enjoy it thoroughly, and we've took on a couple of different, aspects to the role now. We offer up for out of hours custody, and the out-of-hours emergency, so, yeah, and I think, with my new role as a chairman of the Dorset Carers Voice, we're trying to push more people into doing the out-of-hours emergency, because the more there is, there'll be more spaces for children, in them 5 o'clock Friday evenings, for somewhere to sort of go to. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to that challenge. That's relatively new, I'm sort of a month in, so I'm looking forward to that challenge.
That's amazing. So we've probably talked about that in different capacities on the podcast. So we might have talked about it being the Foster Carers Association or Foster Carer Ambassadors, but the idea behind it is around foster carers helping to, I guess, improve services, improve offers for foster carers, for children, looking at kind of practice and kind of working together, isn't it?
Absolutely. And where it's sort of slightly gone awry in the past, I don't really know, because I wasn't sort of part of it. Me and my wife are busy, we both still work, we've always had sort of children, so never really got involved with the old DFCA, you know, but I think it sort of liquidated about sort of a couple of years ago, you know, so there was nothing there. And that's all it is. It's to try and bridge that gap of communication, clear, communication between what the council are trying to achieve to us, you know. And like I say, I'm not naive to think it's going to change overnight, you know, but what I'd like to think is that, you know, the message coming across. And I think half the problem is that, you know, if it's a mixed message or it's not a proper message and people are just talking about it in a group and it's not come from the horse's mouth, whether it's a yay or a nay, you know, I'd like to sort of go back and be able to say, well, I've asked that question and it's a no because of X, Y, and Z, you know, not just a no and everybody's like, oh, why are they saying no, you know. So that's what I'm trying to achieve. You know, like I say, I'm not naive enough to think that it's going to be overnight. You know, I think there's a lot of people who, you know, lost a little bit of sort of trust in, you know, the sort of communication, how it sort of come across. But, you know, I'm here to sort of try and rebuild it. That's what the aim is, for all carers to have a voice, you know, in Dorset.
And we've seen quite a lot of kind of service developments and improvements as a result of kind of foster carers associations or ambassadors, which is fantastic. And Damien, you do a similar role, don't you?
Yes, so there's 5 reps, of which I'm one. So we've got 5 fostering teams within BCP. And Chris, it's identical to what you do. We run a WhatsApp group, which is fantastic. WhatsApp groups can run away with themselves, but what's great is having the 5 reps on there is we can collate information. We meet with senior management once a month on Teams. We can talk through the positives and the negatives of what people are feeling. We can give a good overview of how the fostering family within BCP feel. But like you say, sometimes the answer's no for no reason than there's no money or it doesn't fit with the local authority's vision and values at the time. But we can go back and explain that to foster carers and say, look, this is the reasoning behind it. It works really, really well. I've done a couple of complaints where foster carers have felt maybe not empowered to talk to their supervising social worker or their child in care worker. So they've come to us and we've kind of brokered that. And that's worked really, really well. And then it smooths it over much quicker than them festering on it. So I think the rep system's really good. It's in its infancy. And I think there's lots more we can do. And I'm by far not the best. The other 4 reps do all sorts of things like coffee mornings. One of our reps, they go round her house and she does a holiday club. I mean, it's fantastic. It's a really good thing.
Well, such a busy house. I'm amazed you've got time to fit all of this in as well on top of it.
Yeah, I try. My wife gets cross. I'm chair of governors at a few local schools as well,
amazing.
so I try and keep my fingers in different pies. But yeah, no, we are quite busy.
Yeah, it's brilliant. Like you say, this stuff, it helps foster carers feel that extra level of support and understanding and have that bit more of a voice, for want of a better phrase, with their local authority, that actually they can see their
And
part
also
of it.
part of it is about sort of the correct signposting. Like I say, the amount of little comments you hear about, oh, I've not been paid this much, you know, not quite the forum that sort of, or the platform that we're sort of after, but you know, but if you can be there and say, well, have you spoken to, you know, her or him and one thing, you know, to sort of signpost them, because when you see little comments like that, I get it because that's a foster carer sort of venting in a group, but you know, being able to sort of direct them to the right person rather than just causing a bit of sort of mayhem in the group, then you know, we're there for that as well.
I think it makes the local authorities feel much smaller. So I think certainly for BCP carers that have been there either in Poole or Bournemouth particularly, where there were small local authorities, BCP's now, you know, a really big local authority. What the reps do is they make that feel smaller. So as you talk about signposting, we could say, ring this person, or we could ring somebody and say, look, they've got this problem, or actually they're really, really pleased about this. They want you to know that the social worker's done such an amazing job. They don't know who to go to. So that just works, and it just gives the family feel, if you like, which is really, really good.
And that's what we were talking about when we were kind of prepping for here, wasn't it? It was about actually the benefit of fostering locally, fostering for your local authority, the support, your supervising social workers being close, or your foster carers associations, or you know, other foster carers that can help. You've got people nearby.
I think it's amazing. I mean, for me, I think fostering for the local authority, I mean, I'm second generation foster carer, so my mum and dad fostered for actually in excess of 50 years. And I was laughing when I was thinking about the podcast today, because if you'd asked me as a child, so I don't know whether you've had that, when they do your review, the social worker comes around and wants to talk to your own children. And depending on the age of our own children, it depends on whether they're enjoying fostering. Because I can think of times when I was 13, 14, and I absolutely hated my mum and dad fostering. But I look back now, and I wouldn't be the person I was unless they did foster. And clearly, out of my mum and dad's natural 6 children, 4 of them have gone on to do fostering.
Wow.
So I look at that and go, something, well, you know, that's kind of my inspiration of why I got here. And then back to the part about what I think local authorities offer is that wraparound support that you get from the team building, whether it be with other foster carers, whether it be because you're second generation or third generation foster carers, so you can get advice from your family and stuff. And that makes, because fostering can be a really lonely job.
Yeah.
If you haven't got that support.
Yeah.
And I think what both our services do, Chris, by the sounds of it, is make sure that we don't leave anybody out, which is really, really good.
It's a very good point I want to pick up on there about sort of your own children. I mean, when we first started fostering, my daughter was 6 and my son was 11. And naively, we thought my son would be fine because he was older. And so we spent more time, not convincing Courtney, but I mean, I remember the first girl that we had, you know, similar age, you know, 7, and we did all the sort of the normal come round for tea, come round for a weekend, and they got on really well. And actually, it was Courtney's decision. We said, you know, would you like this young girl to come and stay with us? And he was like, yeah. So, but in the meantime, didn't realise how much he was affecting my son.
Your older child, yeah.
And that didn't sort of come out until sort of years on. But it sort of changed a little bit now because my daughter, you know, even though she's moved out, you know, sort of got less and less wanting her mum to do, you know, sort of fostering, you know, but my lad lives in Qatar. So, but I think it's very important that you do absolutely 100% involve the whole family, and not saying that like we did, like it was her. If she'd have said no, we'd have probably never been fostering now, you know, because you have to, you know, look at your own sort of demographics and, you know, would it work in your household? So it's a very good point.
Much more generous than me, Chris, actually, on that, if I'm honest. I guess it's harder for me because my eldest, who's 28, he was only really small when we started fostering. The other 3 were born while we were fostering. And I guess that's the other misconception out there, isn't there, that, you know, can you continue to have your own children while fostering? And in my case, absolutely. You can. And for me, that's been really good. So I think some of the issues that I deal with, certainly my youngest, Ethan, and he won't mind me mentioning his name, his complaints are about how busy I am. But actually, the reality is I'm less busy than if we both work full-time.
Yeah.
Because my wife works full-time and I'm at home with the children. If we both had to work full-time, but he gets that, but I think he has a sibling rivalry with the other children, and we just monitor that and talk. And I think we're blessed with the children that we've had come through. And we've had some tough children. We've had a lot of dealings with the police over the years. I was saying to you, Chris, I've changed my demographics, actually. So I only fostered teenagers for about 15 to 18 years. And I know that some of my teenagers will be listening. Some of them come back. One of the lads is now 35. He comes back and does decorating for me, which is amazing. But he was tough. The first time he arrived in the house, he was the first young man I ever had, and he had a child in care review on the day he moved in. And he got on top of the shed and just refused for 3 hours to get down. So you know, there are some tough times in fostering. But I look back now, and you know, he's got his own painting company, and I just think, actually, we didn't do that. He did that. All we did was give him the support and the stability to get there. So I just think there isn't another job or role that you could do that.
I know. I mean, the bond, you know, even it could be a short term, 3 months, or it could be long term, you know, 10 years. But the bond, you know, and I'll tell you a funny story. I mean, last year on Father's Day, I had 6 ex-children in care message me before my own children, wishing me happy Father's Day, you know, and you can't buy that.
No.
You can't buy that, you know, and we keep in touch with a lot of the children, even the ones that sort of, I think of 2 off the top of my head who sort of left probably not in the best circumstances, but then quickly realised, you know, like you do, oh, you know, I had a good thing there, you know, and they've come sort of back, you know, not sort of cap in hand, but appreciated what we did at that short spell of time, you know. So bond-wise, it's sort of second to none.
And it's funny, isn't it, Chris, as well, because I was in Tesco's and I bumped into a young man. I ashamedly didn't know who he was. He's somebody that had been with us for 2 weeks, but a long time ago. And it wasn't me, it was my eldest son. Had said to him, he was playing the piano, and he said, oh, I'm sorry making noise. And he said, oh, you're really, really good on that piano. But that stuck with him. And he went off and did music lessons, and he now teaches music. Now, that was nothing to do with us. Yeah. That was just two young people. But he remembered me in Tesco's. And I'm pretending I know, and I felt really guilty. But clearly, we just don't know what a difference our families, because it's our families that foster it, isn't it?
Yeah.
What difference we can make within 2 days, never mind, 2 years.
And it's
Absolutely.
that concept of fostering together, isn't it? That actually there's so much more than people realise. I think they see just the relationship between the foster carer and the young person. And actually there's so much more than that. You talk about your family, your wider friends, support networks, the team around the child, etc. There's so many people that come into play to actually make fostering the success that we hope it will be.
And that's why it's important you've got that network of support, whether it's mothers and fathers or in-laws, sort of you've got a bigger, and that's why, the Mockingbird concept, was superb. Me and my wife were the first Mockingbird home carers, but then we quickly realised that when you work full-time, it's sort of
a challenge, isn't it? Yeah.
The two didn't work. So I think we did it for about 8 months and then had to sort of, stand down. But the concept behind it is exactly, and especially because so it can be a very lonely life being a foster carer. It depends how much you want to integrate. Sometimes it's hard to integrate, because your lifestyle's so busy. But the Mockingbird model is superb. Having that sort of 10 families you can sort of, touch on and, ask for advice and help and, should you need it.
You've both talked about caring for teenagers, and caring and kind of working with teenagers is kind of a passion of mine and kind of priority within my work. What would you say for both of you is some of the misconceptions about teenagers or caring for teenagers?
First of all, I think, which I do believe is getting better within sort of Dorset especially, is their backstory. It's their paperwork that follows a child with them. It has to be current, it has to be updated, it gives you the best chance to then sort of understand, and I think, and I've done it exactly the opposite. We had young children, then we sort of moved on to teenagers, because with young children, you feel that, you could perhaps catch them at a time where you can make the biggest impact, but then again, now having done teenagers, you can still make a huge impact. It's about changing their mindset. Yes, they can be like all teenagers, whether they're your own children or not. Teenagers are teenagers. You'll get some great ones, and touch wood, we have had some great ones. We've had some sort of trying ones, and I've got my two poems down here that, our latest girl that we've got at the moment, she came to us 12, now 15, completely changed her life around, and which is amazing. That calls with mum and dad, in that short space of time, so you can actually absolutely make a difference with teenagers, but it's about understanding them. And the best thing about teenagers, as long as you speak to them, in a sort of mature style, rather than sort of teaching them or speaking to them like a child in care, and because to me, everybody's got a backstory, and there has to be a time when you need to try and move away from that backstory, because keep bringing it up will always have an effect on that young person's life. We need to start. Let's get rid of that. We know it's always there.
We need to understand it
Absolutely.
And know it was there, accept that.
Absolutely.
But where are we going?
We need all these positives that you've done in these last 3 years, and we need to be running with that now. So, and that's what we try and do. And like I say, the latest young girl that we've got is, I think, an absolute credit to herself. To be fair, to sort of turn her life, because she came, hated school, but now excels at school, sort of doing really well. So, yeah, I for one would advocate, sort of teenagers 100%. Nothing against the younger children, but once again, it works with our lifestyle because we're busy. We still like to do stuff. We go on holidays a lot. So, and like I say, and it's easier for friends and family, you know, for them to help you and support than having to look after, you know, a younger child. That's in our view. Yeah.
For me, I think it's getting rid of the myths and conceptions around teenagers in care, because teenagers in general can be tough. The hormones, the nervousness about school, the relationships, the family dynamics are massive. I don't want to be their friend. I do that when they're older. I've got, including my eldest son, I would say we're friends now, but actually I was his dad. I don't have any ideas about who they want to be. I'll support who they want to be. I think we're very therapeutic, so we are really into a PACE model of parenting. Lots of people say that doesn't work with teenagers. It definitely can, and it's about consistency. I find teenagers and children both equally difficult and equally nice to look after. The reason we swapped to smaller children, I think, is I was beginning to feel quite old. So I've got my natural son who's 13 and he's talking to me about all this social media, and as much as I'm trying to keep up, it's like he's talking a foreign language.
Yeah.
I'm sure he does it on purpose just to wind me up. But that's the only thing. But I think teenagers are teenagers. My own teenagers were difficult, regardless of the children I looked after. So the backstory is really important. But the fact that they're just people and they're different and they're entitled to be who they want to be, I think that's my.
And that also ties in again with your own children. If they're at similar ages, you know, what you can't seem to be doing is giving special privileges to one and not the other. So, you know, yes, there'll always be a honeymoon period, you know, but we're adamant in the fact that, you know, they have to gel into your normal lifestyle, you know, from quite an early sort of time set, to be fair, you know, and we found that's the way we do it. It's worked very well, you know, and, you know, what's good for one is good for the other. And like I say, it works, but like I say, other things work, you know, so yeah, everyone's individual. That's I think the message, they're all individual.
I think the other one, Chris, I'm sure you'd agree, and for me, for foster carers, regardless of age, the most important thing is to pass no judgments on their family or their upbringing. They have their family, so I do, my little one, I do family time for both mum and dad. I support them, and that's so important that he sees that I'm not judgmental about the family. You have your own ideas, and you know, and it would be wrong to say that some of our parents aren't tricky, but the children wouldn't be with us if they weren't. But we keep that to ourselves.
And that relationship, and we spoke about this in a previous podcast, that relationship between the foster carer and the parent for that child, where possible, having that relationship is really beneficial for that child.
Absolutely. I mean, the end goal has always got to be, I mean, there's nothing better. We've had two now who have ended up going back to their own birth mother, you know, and surely that's got to be the end state for every child, you know, if they have the opportunity, obviously. You know, and I couldn't think of anything better, you know, because there was clearly a reason why. 9 times out of 10 it's probably the same couple of reasons, but you know, if that can be built and that relationship can go on, and you know, the contact is absolutely important to keep between, you know, the child in care and the parents, you know. So yeah, but if we have a close relationship, like I say, not judgmental, whatever you sort of think about them, you've always got to be positive, you know, with their siblings, you know, their children. So yeah,
I think you're right. I think the most important thing, so with the little 8-year-old I've got, so he's been with us 4.5 years, and his mum and dad have got some needs, and he's going to need to learn to deal with them needs to have a really good relationship when he's an adult. So I think part of mine and my wife's and my family's role is to support him into understanding his mum and dad, loving them, but knowing that they might be tricky too, because if we don't do that work, when they get to 13, 14, 15, you lose them through social media, and then they don't understand it. So for safety, so I think the family, it is so important that they just go and they ask questions, and it's okay to answer, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. I think that having those open conversations where you can, and the relationships where it's safe to do so, can really support a child or a young person in building safe relationships with their parents.
Absolutely.
You've both fostered for a long time. what about children that have we've kind of briefly touched on it, but what about kind of young people and children that have been with you that are maybe in their adulthood now? Have you got many people that you're in contact with?
Well, spookily, our first ever supported lodgings, that's where we started first of all, supported lodgings, is our own Lisa, who's with me today, who is now a social worker herself. Dare I say it, she was a challenging teenager at the time.
She's somewhere over here.
We'll ask you about that in a minute.
Yeah, we'll get both sides of the story.
If you have to cut that bit, then please do. But, but once again, I couldn't be any prouder of seeing that young girl, 15, to her now, her job, her 2 children, who call us grandma and granddad. You know, it's a story. You can't. It's a story that you'll never sort of stop talking about. And then to go off to college, university, and get a degree, and do what she came through herself, because she wanted to pass on and help other children. It's commendable. And yeah, so we have a great relationship. Live around the corner. So
Extended your family.
Yeah.
I said we got such an extended family. I mean, a lad that we had sort of from 9, to 18. Then he left at 18 because they gets the sort of package and moved into supported housing. But he's now back with us because the grass wasn't green on the other side. So he's now staying put. He's 21. So yeah. I mean, because some people just haven't got anybody to go to. After that period of time when they don't have to go. I mean, they could be with you forever and a day,
Yeah.
And we'd have, our door open for any of them, but...
It's really hard, Chris, isn't it? Because we'll all have what people would want to hear as success stories. So I've got people that come back and visit, people that ring. People will only ring me if they've lost their national insurance number or they've been arrested, or that's fine. But actually success is about doing the best that you can, whether you had it for 3 years or 4 years. And you'll bump into a young man who hadn't seen for ages, that's now probably mid-20s. And I said, crikey, I haven't seen you for ages. He said, I just feel really guilty. I've not come round. Just wanted you to know, though, what you and Jan did for us is amazing. And so for some people, it's not about coming back, but it's knowing that they could. But it's difficult. I mean, thinking of my mum and dad, I mean, Valerie, who was one of their foster daughters, now lives in America, but when she lived in Italy, when she moved away, she paid for me to go and tile a bathroom, which is a bit bizarre in Italy, I have to say, but I actually took her up on it. Never tiled before in my life. She never asked me back. But actually, they are...
However, sorry, go on.
No, go on. So we've explored that with Linda before, who was an early guest on the podcast. She talked about a young man she had, and the placement unfortunately broke down. It didn't work. She shared quite openly that she thought she was a massive failure on it. And actually, her social worker shared, well, no, look at the path he was on, look where he's headed now. She didn't see him for 10, 15 years later. A box of chocolates arrived on her door one day. And subsequently, they've been in touch. The young person saw the podcast and was like, oh, it's amazing. It's, lovely to hear these things.
Because like we touched on there, you don't really know what effect you had, whether it's been a week, or 2 years. I have no doubt every child that you have and come across, you will have some sort of impact somewhere down the line. Whether they come back in 20 years and give you a box of chocolates, I think every story is a success story, to be fair, in fostering, but also there's the reality side of it, it's not always pleasant within fostering. It's always rewarding, that's a definite, hopefully you sort of come out the back end, better people and go on and touch wood.
It's the small wins, Chris, isn't it?
It's a small win.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
We did a couple of guys from Albania with us for 2.5 years, unaccompanied minors, and I get so frustrated on the news when people talk about the asylum system, because you know what, they are two of, and I don't want to say the nicest people, because any of my other people are listening, you were all equally nice, but they were, when they left, they wrote us letters to say thank you, and they were just amazing people to look after. So I just think, so fostering across the board, whether it be unaccompanied asylum seekers, teenagers, small children, they all bring their challenges. But you've got to, sometimes, some of our children, you've got to look for the wins, Chris, haven't you? Sometimes they're a bit deep in there, but you can find them.
Yeah. I think, for any duration of time, like you say, whether it's a couple of hours, you know, for some additional support, or kind of 18 years, I think opening your home to a child from outside of your family is really significant and impactful, for you, but also for them. And I think any opportunity, those opportunities, I think, are kind of can be really special. There are challenges though, and we have talked about some of the difficulties and some challenges. But what would you say are the things, either in Dorset or in BCP, that help you during those times when it's kind of challenging? You know, when you have a young person who maybe is kind of feeling frustrated or has been in trouble with the police, or what's around to support you as foster carers and around to support the young person?
Well, you hit the nail on the head. It is the support. It's whatever support network you've built.
Yeah.
I mean, we're fortunate at the moment. The young girl is with us. Our best friends have her sister. And the young person with us was with this other family, you know, so they know each other very well. And if we're at that point, at the end of his tether, you know, we can say, Nikki, Graham, you know, Kayla wants to sort of, you know, weekend, come and see you for a weekend, you know, so sometimes you have to do that. We all need our little sort of, you know, space at time, you know, and rather that, whether it's an hour, you know, going for a walk, or a couple of hours going and doing something else, you know, just take yourself away from it, you know, because there'd be nothing worse than something stupid, and it can get stupid, you know, the stupidest little thing can just sort of, you know, take it off the edge.
Yeah.
Typical family environment.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and that's exactly what it is. It's you know, family environment, but unfortunately, until you get that eureka moment, which is quite strange, because I think we've only ever had it with the young girl we've got at the moment, and it's actually, you know, you can literally see it. You know, I've never saw it in anybody else that we've had, but we went past this stage where going from, oh, you don't want me, you're going to get rid of me. You know, every time they do something wrong, you're going to get rid of me. I know you are. You're going to get, you know, and it was like this eureka moment of this time when she clearly realised, because she'd messed up, you know, but we were still there. We were there for her, and it was like you could see it in her that it just changed from, well, they're not going to get rid of me. You know, I think I've found my forever home. You know, and that's quite special. And I must admit, that's probably the time when she really did turn her life around and sort of move forward. But to finish off your question, it is the support. As long as you've got support, like I say, it can be lonely. And if you're on your own, it could be very lonely and, you know, sort of quite frightening in a way. You know, if you've got nowhere to turn to for help, you know, should you be going through a bad time. But as long as you've got the support, the council are brilliant. You know, you can sort of call upon them, you know, and they'll find support that you sort of need. So, yeah, that's to me. It's just making sure that you've got a good network behind you.
I'd echo all of that. I think training is essential. And interestingly, my team manager, Nikki, will be listening to this going, well, it's funny you should say that, Damien, because it's one thing that I've always want to do more of, but something always gets in the way. So I hope Nikki's listening.
She's going to hold you to this now.
Yeah, the reality is training's really good because it keeps you quite relevant. It's nothing like going on an attachment update or a PACE update, playfulness, acceptance, curiosity, empathy, to go in to refresh you. But support's essential. I think the other one, of course, is, you know what, when the chips are down and you thought you've had somebody living with you for 6 years and it's just, the rug's gone under and it's all gone pear-shaped, it's just to remind yourself that you're not the problem, that actually all you're trying to do is to help. When, you know, foster carers, we're often rescuers, and that's okay, but sometimes young people have to make decisions, and we support them when that decision's wrong, within a non-judgmental way. And that's easy to say, but I have often, but you know, me or my wife have said to each other, crikey, stop beating ourselves up. We didn't make this problem. We're just trying to be solution focused. Not on a bad day when they've broken the dishwasher out of temper and you're just thinking that's going to cost me a couple £100. But you know, you remind yourself, it's just keeping yourself on the straight and narrow. And I do that with my own children as well.
I mean, a couple of points there. Training, absolutely. You know, and when you look at the sort of people who do foster, like ourselves, who are parents ourselves, whatever a child in care does, you would never give up on your own children. That's the way you have to sort of look at it, you know. So however you would have dealt with it with your own children, you deal with it with foster children. So this is where the training comes in, because there's foster carers out there who never had children, you know, had that experience, because, you know, there's no manual to tell you how to be a parent. So the training side on that then becomes absolutely paramount in the fact that, you know, the training is good enough for them to be able to cope and deal with, you know, a child with whatever problem they sort of bring to you.
I think for me, you talk about the eureka moment. I think for the first 10 years, I hadn't done the attachment training because it wasn't something Paul did. I think when I did the 12-week attachment training, which is 1 day a week for 12 weeks, that was a real eye-opener for me, actually. So whilst they are very similar, Chris, to our own children, because all children are similar, they come with such more complexities about dealing with some of the smaller stuff that our children can wake up and naturally be able to cope with, you know, the pitfalls of school life. For some of our children that we look after, they've not learnt them skills. Their attachment style has got in the way of that, their early nurture. So our role is constantly to support that and actually act out the way to do it. And that curiosity, you know, to say, you know, what, I think you did it because of this. I think sometimes people are scared to do that, but that's okay, because that's how we get to know them and teach them to understand their own feelings.
And we talked a bit there about like training and support, and actually some of the reasons why these are some of the strengths behind local council fostering and why some people would choose to foster with those other sort of other agencies. Thinking right back to like the start of your fostering journeys with Damien, yours is a bit different because you're generational fostering.
Yeah.
What sort of drove you towards choosing your local council?
Probably it's the, I mean, I never really knew about IFA, anything like that, you know, so to me it was only the only place to go, to be fair. So, you know, I've never sort of looked anywhere else. I don't think I sort of would, knowing what I know now in the difference between a local authority fostering organisation to an IFA, I don't believe you get the same support in an IFA than you would do in, you know, local authority. So I can't really answer that because I never looked anywhere different apart from, you know, the sort of local council when we were looking.
I'd like to answer it, although I have come, you are right, it was obvious that I'd go through Paul in the old days because my mum and dad fostered through Paul. And I realise your podcast isn't a kicking of IFAs because everything has its place. What I would say is outcome for children are better with local authority. I think that's the case. And I think there's something nice about working for your local authority and giving back to the community. And I understand IFAs have got their place. But our support in BCP, and I'm sure it's the same in Dorset, yes, we've got some challenges in you know, around, you know, social worker turnover and stuff, as they are nationally. We know there's a national picture. But our fostering department in BCP is amazing, and the support, the training that they give you. I've got some friends that foster through, and I won't name them, but IFAs, and they are nowhere near, in their opinion, as supportive of what we get working for BCP.
Yeah, I think the fostering for a local authority, I think when we meet foster carers who foster for local authorities, I think, you know, that passion and that commitment for caring for children locally and making sure that you have the support.
It's that community footprint idea, isn't it? We talk about, 100% that idea of like that keeping children local and like that, the solutions behind that.
I think it's brilliant. Sorry, it's a bit of a passion. I go on to this mantra
No, we
about
love
this
it.
actually, because, you know, being a fostering rep gives me opportunities to talk to senior managers within BCP, which makes, I hope, what we do is we advocate for our children, particularly our care experienced young people, which we know is a challenge out there with housing. I'm on the corporate parenting for BCP because I'm a fostering rep. I wouldn't get that if I worked for an IFA. So I've got a voice at the table. Am I listened to? I hope so. But we're certainly pushing advocates along with our care experienced people that are also on the corporate parenting. So I just think it helps sharpen the local authority, particularly councillors, into actually what's it really like on the ground. So I feel like we've got a voice at the table, which I'm quite proud of.
I think that's essential. I think in terms of looking at development in fostering, improving services for children who are looked after, care experience young people kind of moving on, also for foster carers, supporting foster carers all the way through. And I think it's really important that kind of corporate parenting panels understand more about fostering, and I know they want to hear more about actually what it's like and the challenges, because they want to help make those improvements. And I think we are going to try and bring somebody on from kind of a corporate parenting panel into some of our future podcasts.
And I think it's really important to keep giving fostering that footprint generally. I think the role of the hubs, so obviously there's us and the other regional hubs, actually we've got that chance to have that footprint of taking fostering to new arenas, making more people aware of it, and actually giving it the opportunity to kind of have it say, hearing stories like yourselves, dispelling some of the myths behind it, hearing just the breadth of people who actually are in fostering and how it's been and the outcomes.
No, absolutely. I mean, things like this, I think, are just superb, and they have to be, because you look at the recruitment drive, which I'm sure there's more people than the 168 that's in sort of Dorset who foster, who are like us, and it's just sort of tapping into that. I couldn't for a minute put my finger on why the recruitment's as sort of low as it is. I get it's a big commitment, but very rewarding. So things like this podcast, with proper stories and people who are sort of doing it for a while, hopefully, people will sort of sit up and listen.
I think we've got it's myth busting, isn't it?
Yeah.
So it's about, can you be same-sex couples? Can you be single? What ethnic diversity are you? Actually, we both work full-time. We've only got one spare bedroom. We rent. We live with our parents. Actually, we're a broad church, aren't we? And it's getting that message out. Actually, are we safe people to be with children that are willing to be adaptive and look after and do the best we can for outcomes for children and young people? That's what we need to get out there. Yeah. But when you talk to people, they always go, I've only got one spare bedroom, and and I love doing bingo on a Tuesday, and that'd be really difficult because they probably won't like bingo, and it's getting past that. I think there's some storylines out there that are quite good. It's not Death in Paradise, but it's
Beyond Paradise.
Beyond Paradise. And that fostering story, while some of it I know is not quite correct, I really like that. Full-time working couple, really good jobs, doing the best they can. They've tried to show the emotional journey that can be there too. I think if people watch that and go, actually, because there's some real realities around what that is, and I just think stories like that, we just need to get more of them out there, I think.
Definitely. And there's a soap that's run, I won't name it, but there's a soap that's been running a storyline recently. It is quite inaccurate, the fostering journey.
Was it the next day they had a child play? Yeah, good.
Yeah. I think you're right. I think there's so many different people that have some skills or some resources that could help and support children in their local community. And people assume to be a foster carer, not working, and I need X number of spare rooms. And actually, even without a spare room, there are still things that people are able to do in terms of fostering and supporting children who are looked after. We met fostering families in a previous episode. There's kind of caring for babies. There is something out there for everyone. And I think part of the recruitment is about trying to reach as many people as we can so that they kind of realise that actually there's very few limitations.
Absolutely. And I think it's getting past that first hurdle. I mean, I do believe, looking at stats and hearing the stats, that the initial sort of touching base is the bit afterwards. I mean, I don't know what's sort of going wrong there. I mean, is it the fact that they're not having enough time to sort of speak to or be explained to? I mean, I'd love there to be, a sort of group of mentors, one for a better word, where the council, on the first touch of, the interest, they could be passed on to somebody, perhaps they've made, an interest into, teenagers, for example. I've got
Let's buddy
Chris
them
and
up.
Andrew, teenagers, off they go and put them towards them. I think anything that sort of can try and bridge that gap between the sort of the first pinch point to, actually signing to the dotted line.
It's bringing that knowledge in, isn't it? It's helping to share knowledge and learning and understanding right from the beginning. And it's also building that village of support right from the moment that people are starting to think about fostering.
And getting away from behaviour, because if I think about all the questions that I get. My little 8-year-old, it's fine. The school he goes to, I don't think anybody, he calls us mum and dad. I don't think anybody knows other than teachers he's in foster care. So he's protected from that until he decides to tell people, because parents historically, and it has got better, but certainly if I go back 10 years ago, they don't want these children to go back for after school tea because they think that they've got behavioural difficulties. And it's changing that mould to go that actually just because a child's in care doesn't mean they've got behavioural difficulties. They may have additional needs, may need additional support, but they're just children. They're just children and teenagers. And if we could separate people talking about behaviour with children in care, and we do it as a service sometimes, and we do ourselves a bit of a misservice doing that. We just need to separate and remember they're children.
They're a child, they're a young person, they're an individual.
Absolutely. And when we get there, and that's all we talk about, that's the most important thing we talk about, I think people will be less nervous to take on, extra members of their family or other people's children, however you want to describe it.
Chris, you mentioned about a couple of poems that you've kind of brought with you. Didn't know if you wanted to share any more about them before the end of our podcast.
Yeah, I mean, just the young girl that we've sort of got now, these were after her sort of eureka moments, and I think it's been used in the council, her poem that she wrote to my wife, which is all about sort of mum, and I mean, I have it there, and my wife's is in a frame. She hasn't put mine in one yet, but
That's next Father's Day.
yeah. But she wrote me one just out of the blue, about sort of 6-8 months ago, so where Ange's is to mum, mine is to dad, and some beautiful words. I mean, she's very, very in touch with her, sort of emotional side, and yeah, I mean, it's just one of those things that we'll always have, and we have it in pride of place, and we look at it, and sometimes make her look at it when she might be sort of slightly going off,
having a difficult day.
But yeah, it's things like that, as you call it, little wins, little sort of moments, little gifts. I mean, it's just written on a bit of card, nothing special, didn't cost her any money, it's just the thought that sort of counts, and it's lovely, and it's like anything. It's like, I play golf, I could have 50 awful games, but I'll have that one cracking hole and I'll always go back, and I think that's the same with foster carers.
Yeah.
You could have 20 sort of bad moments, but that one amazing moment, just makes it all worthwhile.
Oh, I love it. Well, there's some beautiful words to kind of slowly draw a close to this section on. But before we do let you go, there's something we always ask everyone, and that is what your advice would be to someone considering becoming a foster carer.
Speak to people who are either in it before you touch base, or if you go through the sort of council and the websites and one thing and another, ask those questions. If there's something that doesn't particularly make any sense, then there'll always be something else, or there's something online, or I mean, just the importance of understanding. And like you brought up there, can I do it because I'm single? Yes. Can I do it because I'm same-sex couple? Yes. Can I do it because I'm this age? Yes. Get all those those answers answered for you, and then sort of move forward and embrace it.
I think it's really simple. Do I like children? Do I like working with children? Yes. Is there any reason why I can't work with children? No. Then go and find out about it. I think it really... I did some fostering training recently for skills for foster, and you get sometimes quite bogged down with some of the terminology, and you could see the new prospective foster carers all looking, and I just went, oh, stop. It's all right. Looking after kids is supposed to be fun, and it's all right.
Yeah.
And I would say that's get that first. Give the local authority a ring, as you say, Chris. If you know another carer, go and talk to them, but go and find out about it. Because I think you'd be quite shocked.
And I think that's really important, isn't it? It's asking those questions and having those conversations. I mean, people who are looking to become foster carers, if you get in touch with a member of our team, then absolutely we can answer sort of specific questions you have. We can put you in touch with people as well who might be able to sort of share some of your story and have had their journey kind of similar to what yours could look like.
And I think it needs to be transparent. It needs to be a transparent conversation, because it can't be flowered up into the fact that it's always amazing. The conversation has to be like we've had here today, the ups and downs and the rewards and non-rewards, so, yeah, fingers crossed. You know, I mean, I think
I think you're right, Chris. I think the first bit for me before Southwest was about, and when Paul was on its own, we kind of did our own recruitment. And the first thing why do you want to foster? Because if you can get that part, then most things you can get around it, because you can talk about the journey. I go along, I can talk about my horror stories, and you could as well, Chris. But actually, what makes you want to foster? If you want to foster, but that at that point you can go, okay, because I agree, we don't want to take on foster carers that then decide it's not for them. Yeah. But actually, what makes you what's your inner drive to do that? And there's lots of people I see particularly on your stuff on social media go, I'd love to do this. Oh, if only we had this, we could do this. And I hear so many of them, I go, why aren't you just looking at it? Because you can always walk away, can't you?
Yeah, absolutely. If it's not right, 100%.
Absolutely, and I think both of you are kind of examples of conversations that we hear from people like, oh, I'll wait till my children are older, or, I need to have my own children first, or actually that there is no right or wrong way to do it. Not. It's about doing what's right for your family.
But they shouldn't be questions they're asking themselves to stop them if they really want to do it. They just need to ask the question, can I do it if I've got a young family? Can I do it? Like I say, can I still have children? Because I think there's a lot of, let's say, myth busting to be done about, what you can and can't do. And it's all there on the internet, which tells what you can and you can't do. So there'll be people there who will say, oh, I'd love to do it only if, and you think to yourself, well, actually you don't, because, if you did, you would, and I've had conversations where if they've asked me a million questions about fostering, I'm behind it 100%. I'll speak to them all day long. But if their first question is, how much do you get for it? Then once again, you just know they're probably not the people who are going to go ahead with it.
On one of our last episodes, it was Emily who brought in love within, bringing love into fostering. And it's the first time we'd really started to talk about, actually kind of that feeling of love within fostering. And Damien, you've brought in that fun element around actually not forgetting the fun that's in fostering. Those days out, those funny moments, those enjoyable times, the silly conversations that you kind of may have. Bringing kind of the fun into it. So thank you for bringing that.
Thank you.
Well, thank you both so much for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure learning more about kind of both of your fostering journeys, how they're so similar and so different. And we're going to have another episode where we're going to also kind of look at BCP and Dorset. But we are going to be speaking to team managers and supervising social workers. So we will see you in a moment.
See you in a moment. Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much.